Student, this is my third lecture, third and final lecture of International Accounting Standard, and we had to discuss only three more IAS. We were discussing about IAS 36. IAS 36 was very important IAS, and there are few past papers came already for this IAS. Okay, this IAS is known as impairment. Impairment. Impairment of non-current asset, impairment of asset. Okay, impairment of asset, impairment of asset. So impairment, what is the impairment? What is the impairment? The definition of this impairment is to change the value of non-current asset. To record the value of non-current asset, the correct figure of non-current asset to be recorded in the books of account. This is known as impairment. This is known as impairment. Okay. The purpose of this standard is to ensure that all non-current assets are carried in the balance sheet at the carrying amount, but not more than their actual value or recoverable amount. Okay. In this impairment, you should know two things are very important. What is the carrying amount? Carrying amount and the recoverable amount. Okay, carrying amount and the recoverable amount. Recoverable amount. Carrying amount and the recoverable. This is very important. Okay, so carrying amount we have discussed earlier. Carrying amount. Carrying amount means the net book value and impairment loss. Okay, carrying amount means net book value equals to net book value. Okay, and the recoverable amount. What is the recoverable amount? Recoverable amount of the non-current asset. Let me read the definition. Recoverable amount of non-current asset. Wait a minute. Yes. You can note this down. You cannot find this in IAS. Okay, IAS does not explain everything in detail. So recoverable amount is the higher of fair value less cost to sell and value in use. Value in use. Class, this is very important. Okay, to understand the recoverable amount. Carrying amount, as I told you, is the book value. Recoverable amount, higher of fair value, less cost of sale, and the value in use. There's two things here. Okay, and the higher of fair value, less cost to sell, and value in use. Fair value कहते हैं इसकी selling price. Higher of fair value, less cost. If you're going to sell any non-current asset, and for sale there are some costs you have to suffer, so that you have to minus. Okay, this is known as fair value less cost to sell. And what is the value in use? What is the value in use? Value in use बोलते हैं total discounted net cash flows. Total discounted NCF, net cash flows. To calculate this, very important IAS. Okay, value in use means total discounted. When you will use the asset for some period of time, so what will be discounted cash? For this, examiner will provide you discounting factors. But that's the same thing we did in the investment appraisal chapter. The same thing we did in investment appraisal chapter. Okay, so in this chapter, impairment of asset क्या होते हैं? पहले तो अभी समझें carrying amount, net book value, recoverable amount, which is equals to higher of fair value less cost to sell and value in. इन दोनों में जो higher होगा वो recoverable amount होगी, right? Higher of fair value less cost to sell and value in use. Fair value is the selling price, less cost to sell will be given to an exam. This is the one part, fair value less cost to sell. इसमें हम compare करेंगे what is the value in use. Value in use you have to calculate. Value in use is total discounted net cash flows. We'll compare this total discounted net cash flows with or you can say the NPV. NPV. NPV, okay, net book value, net present value, NPV. So इन दोनों में से जो हायर होगी उसको सेलेक्ट कर लेंगे, ठीक है, दैट इज कॉल्ड रिकवरेबल अमाउंट. Then we compare the carrying amount with the recoverable amount to calculate the impairment loss. ठीक है, what is the impairment loss later on? Impairment loss is equals to impairment loss इसको नोट कर लीजिएगा आप. impairment loss is this process is known as impairment. This is all process to calculate the impairment loss. Okay, the impairment loss equals to carrying amount. Just a minute. Recoverable amount. यानी कि इसको इस तरह समझ लें आप. impairment loss कैसे होता है? When the recoverable amount is less than carrying amount. Carrying amount is impairment loss. Impairment loss, okay, is impairment loss. Impairment loss when the recoverable amount is less than carrying amount. Recoverable amount क्या होता है? Repeating again, recoverable amount is the higher of fair value. दो चीज़ें हैं, नंबर 1 ये और नंबर 2, इन दोनों में जो हायर होगा, हायर ऑफ fair value less cost to sell, fair value less cost to sell, यानी कि मार्केट प्राइस में से सेलिंग प्राइस निकाल देंगे तो वो आ जाएगी fair value less cost to sell, and the value in use which is discounted cash flows और NPV. इन दोनों में जो हायर होगा दैट इज रिकवरेबल अमाउंट. ओके, इन दोनों जो हायर होगा दैट इज रिकवरेबल अमाउंट. सो रिकवरेबल अमाउंट व्हेन द रिकवरेबल अमाउंट इज लेस देन द बुक वैल्यू. देखिए अगर मार्केट में प्रोडक्ट को बेचते हैं, इस मशीन को बुक वैल्यू से कम में बिकती है, दैट इज इम्पेयरमेंट लॉस. ओके, तो यू हैव टू कैलकुलेट इम्पेयरमेंट. इम्पेयरमेंट लॉस विल बी रिकॉर्डेड एज अ एक्सपेंस इन इनकम स्टेटमेंट. व्हेन देयर इज इम्पेयरमेंट गेन, impairment gain means recoverable amount is more than the carrying amount. Impairment gain cannot be recorded in the income statement as other income. It is not allowable recording according to IAS 36 or according to IAS 1 income statement. Okay, so when there is a carrying amount when there is a recoverable amount is less than carrying amount is known as impairment loss. This is very important. Okay, so in this IAS impairment, we will all consider all important things about for the non-current asset, and to bring the non-current asset to the actual value. For that we have to impair the non-current asset. We have to see the detailed verification. We have to see the detailed verification of non-current asset, so that non-current asset to be recorded with the actual value in the balance sheet. Okay, this is how impairment means. Okay, all definitions given here in this notes, so you read that part. And let's say for example, I'm giving one example here. Let's say for example, in this same IAS 36, IAS 36, let's say for example, okay, a non-current asset, there are 3 non-current assets. Non-current assets 1, 2 and 3. Okay, its carrying amount is given here. Carrying amount, also known as net book value, is given here. For example, its carrying amount is $30,000. Its carrying amount is $15,000. and its carrying amount is $20,000. It's given, okay. This thing I have given you in my notes as well. And the fair value and cost to sell, fair value less cost to sell is also given. For this non-current asset 1, the fair value less cost to sell is 10,000, and for this is 12,000, and for this is 15,000. Okay, and the value in use is already given. Examiner can ask you to calculate value in use. Okay, value in use, as I told you, it is net book value. Value in use, value in use, value in use, net present value. Okay, is to be calculated. It is to be calculated. For example, it is all what is in 10% or 5% that will be given to the exam. Value in use is 50,000 is given for this non-current asset 1. The non-current asset 2 value in use given 14,000, and this non-current asset 3 value in use given $9,000. Okay, and if you are required to show which value of this non-current asset 1, 2 and 3 will be shown in the balance sheet, and what is the impairment loss, and you are required to show the which value of non-current asset to be shown in the balance sheet, and what is the impairment loss. Okay, now if I will show non-current asset 1, if non-current asset 1, so as I told you earlier, the non-current asset must be recorded by lower of carrying value. Non-current asset must be recorded by lower of, see, you can note it down my lecture. Non-current asset must be recorded in the balance sheet by lower of carrying amount, or recoverable amount. Lower of carrying amount, ये एक इम्पोर्टेंट बात है कि जैसे नॉन करंट एसेट, जैसे करंट एसेट में होता है ना, करंट एसेट मस्ट बी रिकॉर्डेड बाय, जैसे करंट एसेट में होता है, करंट एसेट मीन स्टॉक में होता है, स्टॉक मस्ट बी रिकॉर्डेड बाय लोअर ऑफ कॉस्ट और नेट रिलाइजेबल वैल्यू. सिमिलरली यहाँ पर होते हैं नॉन करंट एसेट मस्ट बी रिकॉर्डेड बाय recorded in the balance sheet by lower of carrying amount or the recoverable amount. Okay, now let's say for example asset number 1, ठीक है, carrying amount इसका आ गया, asset number 1 का carrying amount which is given already. Carrying amount of asset 1 is 30,000. अगर नहीं given है तो आप फिर फाइंड करेंगे, कॉस्ट माइनस एक्यूमुलेटेड डेप्रिसिएशन से. एंड द रिकवरेबल अमाउंट क्या था इन दोनों का, हायर ऑफ दिस टू. रिकवरेबल अमाउंट इज द हायर ऑफ फेयर वैल्यू लेस कॉस्ट ऑफ सेल एंड वैल्यू इन यूज. इन दोनों का हायर, दिस इज कॉल्ड रिकवरेबल अमाउंट. व्हिच इज 50,000. Okay, non-current asset must be recorded in the balance sheet by lower of carrying amount or recoverable amount. Lower of carrying amount, and first of all you have to calculate carrying amount, and this is not the recoverable amount. Recoverable amount is the higher of fair value less cost of sale and value in use. इनमें से तो लोअर होगी, ठीक है, तो लोअर कौन सी है, लोअर इज 30. Asset number 1 is recorded at 30,000 because 30,000 is lower than recoverable amount. Since recoverable amount is more than carrying amount, there is no impairment loss. Since recoverable amount is more than carrying amount, there is no impairment loss. Okay, no impairment loss here for asset number 1. Impairment loss कब होता है? जब रिकवरी अमाउंट कैरिंग अमाउंट से कम हो जाए. नहीं तो एसेट को आप बेचोगे तो बुक वैल्यू से भी कम में बिकेगी. ये एसेट नंबर 1. Okay. Now coming to asset number 1 is recorded at $30,000, which is lower. Okay. Now coming to the same thing for asset number 2. Coming to same thing for asset number 2. For asset number 2, the recoverable amount of asset number 2 is 15,000. Sorry, carrying amount of asset number 2 is 15,000, but the recoverable amount of asset number 2 is higher of that. Higher recoverable amount क्या होता है? Recoverable amount, again I'm telling you, recoverable amount is higher of this 2. Higher of fair value, इसी इन दोनों में जो higher होगी. Fair value less cost of sale and value in use. इसमें higher कौन सी है? 14,000 है. This asset number 2 will be recorded by 14,000 in the balance sheet. By 14,000. And there is impairment loss. Impairment loss. Impairment loss क्या होता है? When the carrying amount is less. Impairment loss क्या हो गया? Carrying amount minus recovery amount 1,000 का loss हो गया. Impairment loss. Because recoverable amount is 1,000 less than carrying amount. So how this non-current asset will be recorded in the balance sheet? Okay, this non-current asset must be recorded in the balance sheet. Balance sheet carrying value यानी कि 15,000 में से जो carrying value है इसमें impairment loss माइनस कर दो 14,000, तो ये वही आ जाएगी बात. पर टेक्निकल IAS है ये, वो वेरी टेक्निकल IAS. IAS 16, IAS 36 है ना impairment. IAS 36. Okay, this is IAS 30. हमने 6 लिख दिया. This is IAS 36. Okay, impairment का IAS है IAS 36. So non-current asset number 2 is recorded. Non-current asset number 2 is recorded. The lower of carrying amount or recoverable amount is 14,000. लेकिन बैलेंस शीट में क्या करेंगे? 15,000 बुक वैल्यू. बैलेंस शीट में नॉन करंट एसेट हमेशा बुक वैल्यू पे होता है, लेकिन अगर उसमें इम्पेयरमेंट लॉस है तो माइनस कर देंगे. ठीक है, इम्पेयरमेंट तो वही आ जाएगा आंसर 14,000. और दिस इम्पेयरमेंट लॉस विल बी रिकॉर्डेड इन द इनकम स्टेटमेंट एज द एक्सपेंस एज वेल. इम्पेयरमेंट गेन अलाउएबल नहीं है. नाउ कमिंग टू एसेट, दिस एसेट मस्ट बी रिकॉर्डेड बाय 14,000. नाउ कमिंग टू एसेट नंबर 3. Coming to asset number 3. Okay. In asset number 3, the carrying amount of asset number 3, the carrying amount of asset number 3 is $20,000, and the recoverable amount of asset number 3, and the recoverable amount of asset number 3, which is the higher of these two, higher of fair value less cost to sell and value in use. इसमें higher कौन सी बेटा? 15,000. Okay. दिस इज पहले दोनों निकालेंगे, इन दोनों में से लोअर लेंगे क्योंकि रिकवरेबल अमाउंट हायर पे आता है और नॉन करंट एसेट लोअर पे आता है. सो इन दोनों में जो लोअर है वो 15,000 है. एसेट नंबर 3 विल बी रिकॉर्डेड बाय 15,000 इन द बैलेंस शीट. ओके. नाउ अगेन इम्पेयरमेंट लॉस. इम्पेयरमेंट लॉस इसमें भी इम्पेयरमेंट लॉस होगा क्योंकि रिकवरेबल अमाउंट is less than carrying amount. Carrying amount 20,000 और recoverable amount 15,000, तो 5,000 का लॉस हो गया. This is called impairment loss. Okay. और बैलेंस शीट में नॉन करंट एसेट कैसे रिकॉर्ड करेंगे? बैलेंस शीट में बुक वैल्यू माइनस इम्पेयरमेंट लॉस 5,000, तो ये वही आ जाएगा 15,000. Okay, this is the how non-current asset must be recorded in the balance sheet by carrying amount minus impairment loss. How impairment loss is calculated? Impairment loss क्या होता है? When the recoverable amount is less than the carrying amount. बड़ा connected IAS है. When the recoverable amount less than carrying amount. Recoverable amount क्या होता है? Recoverable amount is the higher of fair value less cost of sale and value in use. ठीक है? ये मैंने सब नोट्स में दिया हुआ है. This is IAS 36 where we have to know the impairment of non-current asset and how impairment is recorded in the books of accounts. Okay. After this, the again IAS 36 is very important. I told you before. After this, the IAS 36. After IAS 36, there is a contingent. For the rest of the two IAS, you can read from my notes, which is not very difficult. The technical IAS 36 was very technical. Now IAS 37. Now coming to the IAS 37. IAS number 37. Okay. IAS 37 says the property, the provision contingent, provision contingent assets and contingent liability, contingent assets and contingent liability, okay. So this IAS you have to just read, which is not very important, but is included in the syllabus. Definition of provisions. Provision is a liability of uncertain time or amount. Okay. Again, I'm telling you, if I'm talking about provision, so you can require provision according to IAS in your own definition. So provision you cannot record by own definition. Provision is the liability or uncertain time or amount. You have to memorize that. Then definition of liability given here. The definition of liability given here according to this IAS. You must read the definition of provision क्या होते हैं आप पढ़ लीजिएगा मुझे बताइएगा and liability important बात है contingent क्या होता है contingent बोलते हैं uncertainty को uncertain which is not known contingent asset and contingent liability ठीक है for example today at December 31st 2018 you're going to make your income statement and the balance sheet, okay? Income statement and the balance sheet. And there is a case put against the company. And there is a lot of chances the company will lose the case. At 31st December 2018, till the end of the year, the case result has not been finalized. The case is still in pending. And is a lot of chances the company will lose the case and will pay the required amount, but this is not confirmed. This is known as contingent. That is contingent liability. The liability of uncertain time difference. The event occurred in this year. Okay. Contingent liability, a possible obligation. Obligation बोलते हैं liability को. A possible obligation depending on whether some uncertain. I'm reading that from here. And contingent liability. Look at that. And contingent liability, okay, contingent liability, a possible obligation here, a possible obligation on whether some uncertain future event. Uncertain means हमें पता नहीं होता है कि वो events होंगे कि नहीं होंगे. Uncertain future events or present obligation by payment is not possible or the amount cannot be measured reliably. ठीक है. Example, allowance for future contingencies, allowance for lawsuit put against the company. कंपनी इसके लिए अलाउंस क्रिएट कर लेती है, राइट, कि दिस इज द लायबिलिटी है, हमें फ्यूचर में पे करनी पड़ेगी, कंफर्म नहीं है तो उसको ये रिकॉर्ड नहीं करेंगे कि वो कंडीशन है. प्रोविजन अजम्पशन होती है जो आप रिकॉर्ड करते हैं. प्रोविजन टू डॉफर्ड डेट्स, प्रोविजन फॉर डेप्रिसिएशन, सब प्रोविजन है. कंडीशन लायबिलिटी क्या होती है कि हमें पता नहीं होती है कितनी लायबिलिटी पे करनी है, राइट. So that contingent asset and contingent liability we cannot record in books of accounts. It must be recorded as a notes to the accounts. Notes to the accounts after the balance, just like proposed dividend. So contingent, I was talking about contingent liability. For example, at 31st December 2018, there is some case put against the company. And company is doubtful that company may lose the case and a company will have to pay $60,000 in future. For that, company will keep reserves and will record as a liability outside the balance sheet, not in the balance sheet, because this is not confirmed. And you can take the vice versa. Company has put the case against somebody. There's a lot of chances the company will win the case. and the amount company can receive in future. Okay, that is known as contingent asset. So that contingent asset again cannot be recorded as an asset in the balance sheet. So this is called contingency. Anything which is not confirmed, but company is willing to take the amount away from and to show the shareholders, that is called contingency. If it is receivable, contingent asset. If it is payable, contingent liability. But both cannot be recorded in the balance sheet as an asset or as a liability. Both must be recorded as notes to the accounts in the statement of financial position after this outside the balance sheet. Okay. Now I'm making it quickly. The last IAS, which is IAS 38. The last IAS, which is IAS number 38. Okay, is again very important IAS. It might come in exam in this year, in 2020 exam, which is called intangibles. जब इंटेंजिबल की बात करते हैं ना, सब के एग्जाम में गुडविल आती है, गुडविल इंटेंजिबल. ठीक है, इंटेंजिबल गुडविल. इंटेंजिबल में और भी चीज़ें होती हैं, इसी को बताता है इंटेंजिबल में क्या क्या चीज़ें आती है अदर देन गुडविल, और क्या क्या चीज़ें इंटेंजिबल्स होती हैं. तो इंटेंजिबल्स को अभी भी डेफिनेशन है, पढ़ने की है, कोई इतना इंपॉर्टेंट डिफिकल्ट आईएएस नहीं है ये. इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स क्या होते हैं? ठीक है, इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स क्या होते हैं देख लें. इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स अकॉर्डिंग टू IAS number 38, according to the IAS number 38, according to the here we go, yes, IAS 38, intangible assets. Okay, and identifiable non-monetary assets. Identifiable non-monetary assets without physical substance. ये मैं पढ़ रहा हूँ. And assets and then resources that is controlled by the enterprise as a result of past events. Okay. For example, purchase goodwill, and for which future economic benefits, inflow of cash or other assets are expected. Okay. Intangible assets must be identifiable होना चाहिए, पता होना चाहिए कितने होते हैं, क्या कौन से हैं, और उसको हम उसके लिए फ्यूचर इकोनॉमिक बेनिफिट होना चाहिए, जस्ट लाइक गुडविल. Okay, by goodwill business will get the future economic benefit. By goodwill business will get the future economic benefit. Okay, right. So अब इसमें सब इम्पोर्टेंट बात यह कि इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स की एग्जाम्पल्स क्या क्या हैं. एग्जाम्पल्स ऑफ इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स. The examples of intangible assets. Examples. Goodwill is the main example. Okay, goodwill is the main example of intangible assets, and the intangible assets like patents, computer software according to IAS. Computer software is also intangible asset according to IAS, and the patents is also intangible assets. Patents and copyrights. Also, number of customers list. Customer list is also intangible assets. These are the intangible asset definition according to IAS. Okay. Since intangible assets are non-current asset, and non-current asset must be depreciated. But we know that intangible asset must not be depreciated; it must be amortized. It must be amortized. Amortization can only apply for goodwill. Once intangible asset is recorded, it must be amortized for the future period of time. Okay, intangible asset usually cannot be revalued. अभी amortization के maximum time period कितना है वो आपको समझ लेना है. Goodwill must be amortized for the maximum 20 years. A company is recorded goodwill, it must be amortized. Life of the goodwill is not more than 20 years. Okay, if it is goodwill of the company is 100,000 and company is amortizing within 20 years, okay, that means every year company will amortize 5,000 goodwill till 20 years. So in this IAS is not difficult. In this IAS you have to read the definition of intangibles, and the examples of intangibles, and the amortization of intangibles. So three things of this IS is very important. Again, I'm telling you in intangibles definition, kind of intangible assets, and particularly goodwill and amortization of intangible assets. Okay, intangible assets cannot be revalued. Okay, one is wrongly recorded before, that it can be changed, but it cannot be revalued as company allows revaluation of non-current asset. Okay, class. This is the complete lecture of IAS. Hope you understand. If there is any confusion, you are most welcome to give me a voice message and or text. I will definitely reply you. Thank you so very much.